Thank you, Madam President. Pursuant to Rule 8.3, I move that, in accordance with the report from the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications reported May 14, 2011, the Senate, having given its advice, do now consent to confirm the appointment of Public Utilities Commission of Ellen Anderson.
To that motion, Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Madam President and members. The Public Utilities Commission is the regulatory agency that manages the details of our energy and telecommunication systems in the state. They evaluate and approve projects proposed by utilities to improve or expand our energy and telecom infrastructure, our transmission lines, new projects, long-range plans, citing the list is long and laborious. Over the course of a 6-year term, a commissioner will make decisions on thousands of cases that impact how services are delivered and what they will cost the ratepayers of Minnesota. I believe that a PUC commissioner has a tremendous responsibility to all Minnesotans. I believe that the commissioner must provide a balanced outlook regarding energy and telecommunication issues. They must consider the interest of ratepayers and the reliability of a system created and maintained by thousands of dedicated technicians working for hundreds of companies that ensure your home's warm in the winter and bright with light on demand every time. And while we all know the PUC handles telecommunications as well as energy issues, my thoughts going forward are geared more towards the energy side of the Commission responsibilities. Members, I believe that a commissioner must not bring to the table prejudices for or against any particular energy type. Commissioners must look at energy through a clear lens, not one tainted by industrial or environmental ideology that would prevent them from honestly considering all power generation options that might strengthen long-term reliability and supply. The Governor appoints the commissioners, and it is our job, this Senate's chamber's responsibility, to advise and consent. It's a responsibility we should not take lightly, members. Ultimately, it's our job to determine if the nominees presented to us would carry out the duties of their position to reflect the best interest of the state. Ellen Anderson is a known quantity in this body. She has learned in the law, which is one of the number of considerations the governor may take into account when selecting a nominee. We all know she has broad knowledge of the energy industry as a former senator, Energy Committee chair, educator, and advocate. Many in this chamber consider her a dear friend, a wonderful mother, and a good wife, and we have watched her family grow. I very much like to confirm former colleagues to administration positions. It is rare when I object to an appointment, but in this case, I cannot support the confirmation of this nominee. Ellen Anderson was a motivated legislator. She served with many of us, and we know her to be extremely passionate with very strong beliefs about how energy resources should be developed. Those same passions also manifest itself into a management style that allowed little room for open discussion and compromise. And in the context of the PUC and regulation of all our utility industries, that deeply concerns me. Her advocacy was well suited for her role in this body, but I do not believe it is appropriate for the Commission, and I do not think it would be the best interest of Minnesotans. Over the long term, I do not believe her sitting on the PUC would be beneficial to ratepayers of our state. In committee, we heard her testimony regarding the law and the suggestion that she could set aside her interests for the greater good. We all know our beliefs permeate everything we do, and it is not as simple as flipping a switch. We push the envelope. That is what we do. Utility law is imperfect. In some places, it is downright unintelligible. There is great discretion for the PUC to sort out the law. Competing economic modeling of new projects, carbon offsets, flexible tariffs, environmental costs, all areas with great discretion granted to the PUC so determine. The viability of every new project depends upon which model a commissioner chooses to accept or what cost is assigned to external project values. Looking back to a previous round of PUC commissioner appointments, the current nominee withheld her committee support for 3 sitting commissioners because of one decision with which she did not agree. One decision based on the subjective, unanimous commission acceptance of one set of cost over another, Now, I believe she has somewhat reconsidered her decision based on the experience she has gained from her time to date on the commission. I respect her for that. I don't hold that one decision against her as a basis for my vote today. Rather, I look at the body of her work. She requested as much in our committee hearing. I look at a public career that has demonized traditional energy sources. I look at derogatory references to, quote, dirty and dangerous fossil fuels or energy cartels that do not reflect well on the nominee. We all know there is always work to be done to move forward. Outright rejection of energy options that built this country and helped foster the highest living standards in the world is irresponsible. And while many agreed with her on various times on big principles to encourage renewable energy, I have deep concerns about her consistent efforts to marginalize traditional sources of energy she is now being expected to regulate. I see a nominee incapable of setting aside her personal beliefs for the greater good because our utility laws do not provide sufficient clarity to prevent someone from imposing an agenda on our energy industries. I believe that when taken in large doses, her interpretation of the law would harm our economy and our Minnesota moving forward. Madam President, members, I do not take joy in opposing this nomination, and I respect those who would disagree, but I just cannot provide my support.
Further discussion. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam President and members. Contrasted with the earlier conversation and vote we had on Commissioner Sorrell, I think if we fail to confirm Commissioner Anderson as chair of the Public Utilities Commission, that will be a very dark moment in the Senate. Mr. Chair, members, what is this really about? It's not really about Ellen Anderson. Senator Rosen is correct. She's a dear friend, a former colleague, a wonderful mother. But it's really about what our job is here. It's really to govern and to do the work of the people and to make sure we have the best people possible in public service who are doing a lot of the work, the detail, fine detail, day-to-day detail on carrying out important functions of government and policy that we can't tend to because we provide the policy direction, and we have folks who carry out the work of the agencies and the commissions to do the daily work. And no one can dispute how well qualified and how hardworking and how diligent and what a student of policy Ellen Anderson is. That is without dispute. Her resume was handed out on the floor, and we see her long career of service in the field of energy and the environment. And it speaks for herself, and she's an attorney, and she knows the law, and she knows it very, very well. And she spent countless hours outside of her responsibility as just simply a senator serving on the committees and coming to the floor, working on the Next Gen Energy Board, Lassard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council, the Legislative and Citizens Commission on Minnesota Resources, Powering the Plains, working on the Midwest Governors Association Regional Energy Negotiation, something that was set up with the support of and participation of previous Governor Tim Pawlenty. As far as jobs in the economy, her commitment and her fidelity to creating jobs and creating the economy of the future is again beyond reproach and without dispute. Serving as the chair of the Green Jobs Council, practically every public comment she made while she was serving to shape policy was about making sure we had a strong economy for the state of Minnesota, a place where people could have good jobs and we could build the jobs of the future. You know, I would ironically agree with everything Senator Rosen said if it were true, but I didn't hear anything that was true in what Senator Rosen said in her characterization of Senator Anderson. This is also about the character someone brings to the job. And again, this is not about Ellen Anderson. This is about a highly qualified, highly competent individual and the characters and the qualities she brings to the job at the Public Utilities Commission. Qualities we know about in her time with us here in the Senate. Of course, we know about the fact that she was very generous, had a very generous and positive and warm, inviting personality. That's a good thing. But we also know about a phenomenal record of accomplishment, many bills to her credit, 18 years as chair, both policy and finance, leading the way on having the crucial discussions we absolutely had to have about energy, and enjoying strong bipartisan support on almost every one of those major accomplishments, with bills being signed by a governor of the different party who for quite some time ran around the country bragging about all of these major accomplishments that he made in conjunction with Senator Ellen Anderson, until it became unfashionable. And then all of a sudden he was running 180 degrees against his own record and rhetoric, which was really a shame to see, because it was something to be proud of and something Minnesota could have been proud of. And we should all be proud of, because many of us voted with Ellen Anderson, who worked with us very closely to move and shape and amend and respond to the many, many stakeholders that participated in long, vigorous, difficult debates in committee, in our offices, on the floor of the Senate. She showed tremendous ability to be flexible and understand the realities that were going on in our present economy while still reaching for the future, always doing it in a way that built camaraderie and built consensus and moved our state forward. It's what our state used to do. It was the hallmark of Minnesota. We had vigorous debates, we had strong views on subjects. At the end of the day, we figured out how to amend the bills, amend the policy proposals, find compromise, come together, get the job done, so that we could put the research, we could put the training, we could put the capital, put the supporting industries, put all the infrastructure in place to move the state forward. That's the model that Ellen Anderson followed, following the footsteps of incredible statesmen and leaders of the state of Minnesota. What are we going to do here today? Are we going to simply look backwards, ignore what has caused our state to become so successful? And finally, it's about performance on the job. And again, Ellen Anderson's record on the Public Utilities Commission is beyond reproach. It is exactly what we want on the Public Utilities Commission, particularly in a position of leadership. You all have letters on your desks or in your email inbox or circulated last year in which she communicated clearly she understands she now has a new role, which is fidelity to the law and to carry out the policies of the state of Minnesota. And what is the record? Well, let's take a look at the record. 214 votes, I think, almost all of which are unanimous on a body that has a Republican majority. We have letters from her colleagues who say she's an excellent Public Utilities Commission chair and that they enjoy working for her and she does a phenomenal job. What else do we need? She's voted in the affirmative on some issues that perhaps the environmental community wouldn't be so thrilled about. But she's considered the evidence, considered the policy, considered the law, considered the best way forward, and has voted in a fashion that upholds the law, upholds her fidelity, upholds her fiduciary responsibility. Madam President and members, I sincerely hope we don't take this step and go down this path. This is a serious responsibility. This is not a political game. This is not about retribution. This is a serious responsibility we have. And this is not about our friend, not about Ellen Anderson. She'll be fine. She's going to have a great life. whatever she does. I suspect it's going to be in the field of energy and the environment. She's going to do fantastic things, and Minnesota will be the better for it. But we will have been robbed of a real opportunity. And finally, Madam President, I'll just mention that when my party was in the majority, we confirmed a number of commissioners, including commissioners to the Public Utilities Commission, but a number of commissioners across the board, who were 180 degrees, who didn't have a breadth, couldn't compare a gnat's breadth to the experience that Ellen Anderson has. They fell down in the realm of experience. They had political views, hardline ideological perspectives going on to these bodies, including Public Utilities Commission, that were absolutely contrary to what the majority of folks, had. But they wanted to dig in, they wanted to work hard, they wanted to continue in public service. And they were Governor Palente's appointees, and he had the right to advance the folks he wanted to advance. And we decided to respect that because that's an important function of our democracy and an important function of elections. A couple of folks didn't make the cut after they had spent quite a bit of time on the job and shown some real lacking. But the vast majority of folks, including folks to the Public Utilities Commission, all of Governor Palente's appointees, a quasi-judicial body which we hope to not politicize, were appointed and confirmed. So, Madam President, I sincerely hope we don't rob Minnesota and Minnesotans of the skills and talents of someone who's so amazingly qualified, who can do so much for this commission and its functioning well on behalf of our energy policy and on behalf of the ratepayers of Minnesota. And I really hope we don't do this to this chamber and darken the service that we bring to Minnesota. It will cheapen and darken our solemn responsibility, and it will seriously erode the trust and the relationships that we have inside this chamber, which is also important in terms of our public service and how well we serve the people of Minnesota. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Skoye.
Thank you, Madam President. And I also rise to support former Senator Ellen Anderson's confirmation as chair of the Public Utilities Commission. You know, members, as I have approached these confirmation votes, I have always tried to base my decisions on the job that the commissioner was doing and the role and the position that the confirmation was for. Senator Rosen mentioned one of Ellen's votes and other votes that had to do with previous confirmation hearings. You know, members, if we go down this tit for tat on confirmation hearings, the trajectory is losing for the state, and it really will not serve us well in the long run, and governors will have an extremely difficult time having qualified people serve as commissioners if we're just rejecting on a kind of a tit for tat basis and somebody else did this, so we're going to make this action. The other question that Senator Rosen has mentioned is advocacy for an energy agenda. Now, as legislators and senators, Senator Anderson and my energy policies probably seldom intertwined. As a matter of fact, I was one of the 3 members to vote against one of her major energy policy initiatives that many of you incumbents voted for. Governor Plenty signed it into law. But that doesn't mean that Senator Anderson doesn't deserve to be chair of the PUC, because I disagreed with her on that one initiative. Senator Anderson worked hard to bring collaboration and compromise to these decisions so that she could have votes where only 3 members disagreed with her, and the governor did sign into law. You know, I think about Senator Anderson's years as a senator from St. Paul, in the advocacy for her constituents, I think it's complimentary of the hard work that she did on behalf of those people that live in St. Paul. And while I might not agree with all of it, I think the work was done in the best of motives, always done well and with the good of the state in mind. Now, the discussion today is about the confirmation of Ellen Anderson as chair of the Public Utilities Commission. And there's no good reason to not confirm her. 99.5% of the votes under her tenure have been unanimous. Only twice has she been on the losing side of votes. Can we not tolerate this small amount of disagreement? Do we have such small tolerance for discussion and debate? Do we not want compromise and collaboration in these utility commissions and other commissioners? I ask you to think about this as you cast your vote. I think Governor Dayton has done a good job with his appointments. I think Ellen Anderson has done a good job in her role as chair of the PUC, and I think she deserves to be confirmed. And I would ask you to vote in the affirmative.
Senator McGuire.
Thank you, Madam President.
I don't believe your microphone's on.
Oh, there. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, members of the Senate, I'm relatively new to the Senate, but I'm not new to the political atmosphere. I've served 14 years in the House, and now I'm serving in the Senate. And when I got to the Senate, they said, "Oh, well, now you're in the collegial body. Now you're in the body, the upper body." And I said, "Well, I don't know about that." But you come here and you get to know each other, and it's a smaller body, so you get to work with each other on a much closer basis. But I must say that today, I do not believe we're a very collegial body. This is about a governor being able to appoint a commissioner, and this is a great appointment that he has made in the name of Commissioner Anderson. She's qualified, she's experienced, she knows the issues. And I'm really dismayed at this body that we're not allowing the governor to make the appointments that he wants. But here's what I'm really disappointed at, in that members of this body are saying things that just aren't true about Ellen Anderson. And I've handed out a handout that gives the votes of just several of her bills, but we all know that that Senator Anderson, when she was here, worked with all of you. She worked to achieve consensus. She worked collaboratively to get things done and passed the renewable energy standards. Senator Skoye is right. There were 3 people that voted no, but everybody else supported that bill. In fact, the governor signed it, Governor Appointee signed it, and then received national recognition for it. So we have, and then on the other side of the handout, there's a bill that was unanimous. Each of these bills had Republican support. Senator Rosen, you were an author on both of those bills that received, this one bill received unanimous support. This is about a senator who has always worked collaboratively on issues that she does care about. Yes, she's a wonderful, passionate advocate for the citizens of Minnesota. She cares about them and what is going on with the energy needs of our state. If she's passionate about anything, that is absolutely it. She's passionate for the citizens of the state of Minnesota. I think when we hear what the public is frustrated with us about, they're frustrated about the partisanship that we have. They just want us to get our work done. They want us to make good decisions, and they want us to get our work done. This is about as partisan as it gets. When you know that you have a qualified person, when a governor gets to appoint a person of his own choice, and it's a designated Democrat seat, so he has to appoint a Democrat, and we are fighting this appointment for a person that you've all worked with. This is the really amazing thing. You've all worked with Ellen. You know her. You know she's collaborative. You know she'll do her best to work for the citizens of Minnesota. It's unbelievable to me that you would not approve this confirmation, or that you would not confirm this appointment. So, Madam President and members, I would like a roll call vote on this motion. So when it comes after everyone has spoken, I would like a roll call on this.
Roll call has been requested. Roll call granted. Senator Saxog.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of Ellen Anderson for Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission. You know, I served with then Senator Anderson as she co-chaired the 07 and 09 Environment and Natural Resources and Energy Budget Bill Conference Committees. Both conference committee reports were approved unanimously. Her most recent Environment and Natural Resource Budget Bill, that Senate File 3275 in 2010, passed 63-4. I'm just here to tell you that Ellen Anderson is a consensus builder. I've seen it. And I recommend her approval as chairman of the Public Utilities Commission. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam President.
Senator Senjum. Senator Senjum, were you still wanting to be recognized? Senator Senjum, did you want to be recognized? You had indicated no. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam President. It's interesting that we thought Senator Senjum wanted to be recognized because I was about to quote from him. In the Capitol report, Senator Senjum is quoted as saying, any commissioner's confirmation will be based on performance and merits, at least as far as our caucus is concerned, as far as our caucus sees it. And that's exactly what I wanted to talk about today, is address Commissioner Anderson's merit, her experience in the Minnesota Senate, and I want to dig down a little deeper than Senator Dibble did, and her performance as a PUC commissioner. First of all, I passed out her resume. So we could see just by looking at her resume, she's an attorney, she's chaired 4 major Senate committees, she's very experienced in this issue. Then I wanted to talk about her record as a senator and as a leader. And it's not just 1 or 2 bills that she developed consensus around. It's year after year, bill after bill. The 2010 LCCMR bill passed the Senate 58-6. This was her bill. And the Omnibus Energy and Environment Budget Bill passed the Senate 63-4. In 2009, the LCCMR bill passed the Senate 67-0, and the co-authors included Senator Parasol and Senator Frederickson. Excuse me. In 2009, the Omnibus Energy Bill passed the Senate 46-16. A very big one and possibly controversial bill in 2009, the Energy Stimulus Bill, passed the Senate, and the yes votes included Fischbach, Rosen, Roebling, Frederickson, Michelle, Senjum, and Dill. The 2008 LCMR bill passed the Senate. Co-authors included Parasol and Frederickson. The 2008 Green Solutions Act also passed the Senate and was signed by Governor Pawlenty. Senator McGuire already talked about the renewable energy bill that was signed into law by Pawlenty, with Senator Rosen as a co-author. The renewable energy standard in 2006, yes votes included Rosen, Michelle, Dill, Neville, and Bellinger. In 2005, the Energy Omnibus Policy Bill. You get the idea that over the years, she developed, her omnibus bills were consensus bills that were always signed by Governor Pawlenty. In addition, from 2003 to 2011, there were 24 Senator Anderson bills that featured Julie Rosen as a co-author. During that same period, there were 20 Julie Rosen bills that featured Ellen Anderson as a co-author. They were partners. They were partners, members.
Madam President.
And Senator Rosen called her a visionary leader. during one of the floor debates. I'm sorry. Madam President, I guess I still have the floor. Then I wanted to talk about her PUC record. It was mentioned already that out of 221 total votes, 204 of those were unanimous votes. Her record in the last year on the Public Utilities Commission has been, as a leader, as the chair, to develop consensus votes as much as possible. Of the 6 votes in which she was in the minority, one of her co-minority voting members was a Republican. It didn't break down along partisan lines. And I just wanted to give you an example of one of the unanimous votes. Anderson voted with the majority to unanimously approve retrofitting a coal-fired power plant. This was in the Star Tribune just in December. This is hardly demonizing natural power sources, and she's hardly a controversial character. Members, there is no legitimate reason not to confirm our former Senate colleague, Commissioner Ellen Anderson. There is no legitimate reason not to confirm her.
Senator Senjum.
Thank you, Madam President. And not to rise in the sense of a point of order, but perhaps just to remind the body that Sections 124 and 125 of Masons do talk about using personalities in debates and referring to members' names, and I think we just need to be cognizant of that as we move forward in this debate. Thank you.
Senator Senjum, I appreciate the reminder, and if anyone would like to reference those, it would be helpful in further debate. Senator Higgins.
Thank you, Madam President. A few minutes ago, when I spoke about the confirmation of Tom Landwehr for Commissioner of DNR, I said if we had to go looking for a commissioner, that's who we'd look for. I think the same thing about the Commissioner of Public Utilities Commission. If we had to go looking today, we'd go looking for Ellen Anderson. She is passionate in her beliefs, but she is collaborative. She will sit at a table all day trying to come to compromise and collaboration to get people all on the same path forward. And we know she's collaborative. As Senator Dibble said, more than 99% of the votes taken in the PUC have been unanimous. Half the body is Democrat, half the body is Republican, with one more Republican than Democrat. So you know that if things are going to get done, there has to be collaboration there, and she's one of those collaborators. She's forward-thinking, but it's through a historical frame of reference. She knows that Minnesotans overwhelmingly approve of the use of clean energy, and that using that clean energy will create jobs. She's not extreme. She's right there where the rest of the folks in Minnesota are. And she works in her job passionately and collaboratively, trying to take our state forward. She's also a state national leader on energy and environment, but she still is schooled in the minutia of her Senate district. She knows what's going on in her schools. She knows what's going on in her neighborhoods. She also knows what's going on in energy issues all around our country. We should be so lucky as to have Ellen Anderson as our Public Utilities Commissioner. What a statement of how good our state is that we have Ellen there. I want to end with just one anecdote about when Ellen chaired the Jobs and Housing Committee way back when, and I was on that committee. And we traditionally met middle of the day, which was fine for most of the issues that we dealt with. But when Ellen became chair, she set in place a series of evening meetings. The first ones she started were about housing issues, because of course the people who wanted to talk to us about the issues they had surrounding their housing were people who worked during the day. They couldn't come to a legislative hearing at 2 in the afternoon or 10 in the morning. So she set in place these hearings in the evening when people who we represent were able to come. And they did come. The room was filled full of people who had come here to talk to their government. And talk they did. And whenever we thought we were winding down, and Ellen would say, is there anybody else who'd want to, give any more advice or information to the committee? A couple of more people would stand up, and they'd come in, and they'd sit down, and they'd talk to their government. Not things that the average Joe on the street had been able to do before. And I'll never forget that day. It was a good one for the state of Minnesota.
Senator Bonoff.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to not only oppose what you are proposing, but to also share my disappointment with the actions of the majority party today. I think you are not protecting the power and the privilege of leadership. That is a strong statement, and I do not make it lightly. So please allow me to make this case. A reporter called me a few days before the session. He asked me how I thought the recent, quote, scandal would impact the Democrats this session. I was very careful in my response. I did not want to use this as an occasion to criticize. I said that going through such an experience is very tough. I said it's also humbling. I thought the GOP would want to restore their reputation with the public. I assumed that, based on what I hear all the time in my own community, that they would think the surest and fastest way to restore and repair their relationship with the public is to lead this session with a renewed commitment to bipartisan partnership. I think that's what the people want, and in fact, that is what I had hoped for. Senator Senjum didn't disappoint me on day one. He spoke of us as a family in a way that only he can do. I smiled. I thought that would be his demeanor. And yet, abruptly, things turned. Very soon after those words were spoken, a Rules Committee was convened, and an unprecedented action was taken. The minority party was to cut an amount that resulted in 12 FTEs being let go as of June 1st, and the majority party would not be cutting.
Madam President, point of order. Is this related to the confirmation calendar?
Excuse me just a moment. Senator Ortman, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to ask if this is related to the confirmation calendar and the matters before the Senate.
Senator Bonoff, is it related?
Madam President, it is, because in fact, what I'm asserting in my remarks is that the rejection of Senator Anderson is a partisan approach, and I am requesting that we look at it from a different perspective. So yes, it is relevant.
Senator Bonoff, let's get to the point then.
Thank you.
So that we do stay on topic.
Very good, thank you. I have an election certificate, and I signed up for this job knowing that partisan battles do come with this territory. Yet in my 6 years, one of my strongest commitments has been to reinvent what it means to be an elected official, because I believe the public has moved beyond labels and we have not kept up. The public expects us to honor the voices of those who voted to put every one of us in this chamber in this role, and that is what we owe them. Whether it's making lopsided cuts affecting our longest-serving staff, or today a very partisan move, rejecting the confirmation of our colleague Ellen Anderson. The governor has the right to appoint his commissioners. It is our duty to protect the public interest if we feel as though the person appointed by the governor wouldn't do the job in the best interest of the citizens. Rejecting a confirmation is a serious matter, and I am speaking long, members, because I think it's important. I think it is very serious, and we ought to think about it carefully. I recall during my time there's only been one such rejection. This was made after the person had served in their role for some time and was clearly, questionably able to fulfill an extremely demanding role of leading a troubled agency after a major crisis that Senator Dibble referred to. And in addition, she happened to be the lieutenant governor. The agency was reeling and new leadership was called for. Tom Sorrell assumed that post, and we have all been served well because of that, and you've all heard that today. Others have spoke of Sherry Yecke, who was rejected before my time. Yet I was an involved parent at that time and distinctly remember how Commissioner Yecke answered a question during a large education forum. Someone asked her what would be most effective in making sure our youngest learners who were living in poverty came to kindergarten ready to learn. Commissioner Yecke answered, "Their moms should stay home." The audience gasped. Of course, we all know poor moms don't have that luxury, so the comments seem mean. I wrote a letter to the editor following that forum, and I was not surprised when I learned that this body had rejected her confirmation. And then I think we can all agree that Alice Seagren, a trusted Republican Minnesotan, was the right woman for that job and served us well. Those two rejections are not similar to what is happening today. Ellen is a Minnesotan who served her district and the state with honor for many years. When she assumed the role of commissioner, she pledged to be a consensus builder, not a partisan divider. She has clearly fulfilled that promise in her early Senate days. Her peers speak very highly of her. Ellen pushed us during her tenure to be bold in her approach to energy conservation. She knew by leading in that manner, we would be best able to reach compromise. In fact, as we've said, Governor Pawlenty spoke proudly of our pioneering efforts in the renewable energy field. We were one of the first to pass strong standards, and he was most proud of it. In this role, Ellen has promised something different. She's promised to be an effective leader, promised to move beyond ideology and toward consensus resolution. She has, in fact, established an early track record of doing just that. You, the majority party, have been given the trust of the people to lead. Regardless of your actions today, I will not be thwarted in my commitment to serve in a way that is, quote, beyond labels. I ask you to reconsider your actions today. Have compassion in your leadership role and give Commissioner Anderson a chance to do her job. Let her rise or let her fall based on her performance. Ellen served her district well for all those years. I trust Ellen in her statewide role to lead in a way that serves all Minnesotans. Please exemplify the kind of leadership that allows others to grow and develop. Do not take action today that continues to unravel the fabric of trust in government. I know, Senator Rosen, you are a strong leader who has a talent for bringing people together. Please stand tall, reject this practice, and give Commissioner Anderson just a little bit of time.
Senator Thomasoni.
Thank you, Madam President. Like my seatmate, Senator Scobie, Senator Anderson and I didn't always see eye to eye on various policies, and in fact, we maybe even argued about some things sometimes, but I think in the long run, Alan probably voted for most of my bills, and I probably voted for most of Alan's bills. We had a very uniting opportunity when I was on the LCMR with Alan, and we went up to the Iron Range to tour the Hibbing Taconite, and we got there in time to see a blast. And the foreman asked me if I would like to send somebody down into the pit to push the plunger. And I picked Ellen, and her, along with Senator Vickerman, went down into the pit, and I think she actually enjoyed blowing something up. Last year, or 2 years ago, we had a bill that was going to manufacture solar panels on the Iron Range, and today we are actually producing those solar panels, and Senator Anderson at the time put my particular legislation in her omnibus bill, which I guess made her the author of the bill for producing solar panels on the Iron Range. In that particular instance, we certainly got along. And I just want to say that, you know, one of the reasons that governors get to pick commissioners is because the commissioners promote the policies of that governor. But in this particular case, the governor was actually required by statute to pick a Democrat, and he did so. And I think it's wrong to not confirm Alan Anderson today, and I would hope that we do confirm the governor's appointee.
Senator Bach.
Thank you, Madam President. It's a sad day. And I was thinking about how I might express what it feels like to remind some of you what it's like to be in the minority. So I was reviewing the transcript of an event that happened in this chamber on the 28th of February in 2008. And it was the confirmation of the Transportation Commissioner, who had been given a lot of time, had been over 5 years, either the Lieutenant Governor and much of that time the Commissioner of Transportation before that confirmation was taken up. And I was looking through that transcript. I noticed 10 minutes and 45 seconds into it, the senator from Eden Prairie said in part, and I just think, members, that this does not set a good tone for this body going forward for the rest of this session. And 30 minutes and 37 seconds into that debate, the senator from Edina said, and I quote, "This is not a bipartisan act. This is not an olive branch. This is not listening and compromise. This is a power play. And I think it's going to make things more difficult to do this session." And then an hour and 5 minutes into that debate, the senator from Rochester, an elected leader of the Senate, said, and I quote, "It's a sad day. Absolutely a sad day. And if you can't get a little emotional about this, then I don't think you can get emotional. Because what we're doing today is, to one of the finest public servants this state has ever known, is absolutely horrible," unquote. And he goes on to say, "We call this, I think, back home, a political execution. This is terrible. Think about what we are doing to the person that has given her life, absolutely her life, to public service. And this is the thanks she gets. As we go forward, let's think about what this moment is all about. Let's think about this session and where this takes us, because I think this is a watershed event." Members, those aren't my words. Those are words of members of your caucus. Members, I don't believe we've given former Senator, Acting Commissioner Ellen Anderson adequate time to review her performance. I think we owe her that. It seems clear to me that this isn't about a record on the job. This is about something else. I think we would be wise as a state Senate to give her some additional time so that we can make a more thorough evaluation of her performance. And for that reason, Madam President, I would move to lay the motion to confirm on the table and ask for a roll call vote.
Senator Bach has made the motion to lay the confirmation on the table and has requested a roll call vote. It is a non-debatable motion. Secretary will take the roll. All those senators voting who desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 29 ayes and 37 nays, the motion does not prevail. Further discussion on Senator Marty. DeRosen's motion.
Madam President, on this motion, I'm really troubled by the stuff that's being said outside of here. I was looking over the news reports over the last weekend, and one of them quoted Senator Ortman as saying former Senator Anderson's views on energy issues was extreme and out of line with most Minnesotans. Quote, her work has created some controversy. It makes it difficult to confirm a commissioner who is as controversial as she's been. Said Ortman declined to discuss specifics. I've been hearing the numbers. Several of you have
Madam Chair.
Senator Senjum, for what purpose do you rise?
Madam Chair, I would just perhaps now call a point of order to the mention of names and personalities in the debate. Per Rule 36.2 and Mason's 124 and 125.
Madam President, on that point,
Senator Marty.
how am I supposed to ask Senator Ortman a question if I can't use her name? Do I say the senator sitting next to the guy over there?
Well, Senator
I'm
Marty, I think
serious.
the point is, and I'm serious, I think the point is that if you are asking someone to yield, obviously you need to use their name. But in the context you were talking, you were not referencing the name to ask for her to yield, I think is what the point that Senator Senjum is making, and I would like to, if everybody would like to reference 36.2, the member shall speak only to the question under debate and avoid personality. And we have been veering off that today, as Senator Senjum has reminded us several times. And so I would ask, and then there's references about using names in Masons, and I believe you referenced the number, Senator Senjum, but you are allowed to ask someone to yield, yes, by name, but
Thank you.
you weren't at that point yet, Senator Martin.
On that point, Madam President, I heard several other people use a number of votes. I think it was 221 votes. I think I heard that Senator Anderson voted in the minority 6 times as chair of the commission. And Senator Ortman, I guess I would appreciate if you could tell me what the controversy is, where she's being out of touch, out of line. Again, 60% of this commission is Republican. Could you expound on that? If this is a controversial thing, if her views are out of touch, she's been there for a little less than a year, and in all that many votes, she's voting with the Republican majority over and over again. Could you give a little bit of explanation what's controversial, what's out of line with Minnesotans?
Senator Marty, are you asking Senator Ortman to yield?
Madam
Senator
President, many times over the years we would ask the question without asking to yield first, and she doesn't have to. But yes, Senator Ortman, will you yield? And if so, will you answer the question?
Senator Ortman, will you yield? Senator Ortman.
Thank you, Madam President, and to Senator Marty. My view is that we agree on a lot here in the Minnesota Senate. In fact, we take far more unanimous votes than we do votes where we disagree. But those disagreements can be very deep and very profound in terms of our philosophical views, and I think that that's probably true with the PUC as well, although I'm no expert on what the PUC does. I would say this, that I have a very great concern for the ratepayers of the state of Minnesota, and I believe that they have a very big burden. Their costs of obtaining utility service has gone up significantly over the last several years, and that is the core of my concern with the confirmation of this particular commissioner.
Further discussion, Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm glad that the senator brought up this issue with ratepayers, and I apologize, Senator Senjum, about using your name. Oh, excuse me. I apologize, Mr. Majority Leader, about using your name. I forgot about the rule. I've only been around here 28 years, so I guess I'm
Senator Pappas,
a newbie. Sorry, Madam Chair. The issue in that same quote about Senator Anderson being controversial, there was also a quote about a tough record for job providers, job creators, and the ratepayers. And I just did want to inform the body that one of the 6 votes in which Senator Anderson did not vote with the majority was a vote to protect the ratepayers. And she took that vote actually with one of the Republican PUC commissioners. So she is very concerned about the ratepayers. As Senator Tomassoni mentioned, he gave a very good example about Senator Anderson as a job creator. And I do have some examples of her record here in the Senate. In 2007, she authored legislation to help the Rock 10 plant save 500 good-paying jobs after they lost their energy source from the old High Bridge coal plant. The plant was likely to shut down, and the bill created solutions to their energy problem which saved the plant. Another initiative, she authored CAR Z in partnership with Governor Pawlenty to provide incentives to Ford to keep hundreds of jobs at the Ford plant. She's very concerned about that. She authored a stimulus funding bill which weatherized thousands of Minnesota homes, putting many people to work. She authored and funded the Made in Minnesota solar rebate bill in partnership with Senator Tomassoni. When she chaired the Jobs Committee, she did a great deal to help dislocated and laid off workers to improve their job training opportunities. And in fact, an example is in 2002, she led a bipartisan conference committee which negotiated extended unemployment benefits to thousands of laid off workers at places like Northwest and Finger Hut. So I do think, members, in this debate, it is very important that we set the record straight, that it is not true that Senator Anderson has gone out of her way either to harm the creation of jobs or to harm ratepayers.
Senator Goodwin.
Thank you, Madam President. And members, you know, as I listen to this debate and I hear all the different things that Ellen Anderson has done as a member of this body, I didn't serve with her that long, but I certainly knew her experience on energy issues. And I don't know how we can turn this candidate away when we will be very hard-pressed to find anybody that could even come close to her experience on the PUC. I think I'd go as far to say as she could be the best chair of the PUC that we've ever had in this state, much more experience than many, many folks that have led that agency before. She teaches the issue. She teaches energy policy at the University of Minnesota. She teaches it at law school. She is asked by people all over the nation to come and speak to her about energy issues. I don't know how many of us here are so qualified in just one issue area that we're asked to speak all over the nation, but I dare to say it's not too many. Not me, for sure. And she wrote the laws on this issue. She helped to write the laws over the past 18 years. How much more familiar could you get with the laws in energy regulation than Ellen Anderson? And 18 years in the Senate, she devoted her life to that. You know, I feel a little bit insulted by the fact that what was brought up about her is that she's a great mother. I'm sure she's a great mother, but she's got a whole lot more than that. We're not evaluating her motherhood. We're evaluating her role as the chair of the PUC. So I really like to remind people that that makes it sound like a very sexist issue, quite frankly. So I do think that she has proven herself over and over again, and I just can't see any reason, except partisan reasons, why she would be rejected. And this is the third day of session. 2 of the 3 days have been extremely partisan. Very difficult for me when people ask me, oh, how is the Senate? Isn't the Senate better than the House? Isn't it great? You know, because I served my 3 terms in the Senate, worked there for 10 years, or in the House, I should say. And no, it's not great. With the things that happened last year and the things that are happening this year, and in this appointment particularly, it's way more partisan than I ever found in the House. I'm not proud. I'm not proud anymore to tell people I'm in the Minnesota Senate. I think these kinds of things are the things that make us all look bad. These are kind of things that make politicians all look bad, and it makes us all look partisan. And watching the Senate over the years, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the Senate do specifically partisan things, and I've seen the Democrats and Republicans work together, and I really respected that part of this body. But that's not happening here anymore, and it's a real shame because it really is setting a precedent, a wrong precedent for this institution. Please vote yes on Ellen Anderson's commission.
Senator Rosen renews her motion that in accordance with the report from the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications reported May 14th, 2011, the Senate have given its advice, do now consent to and confirm the appointment of Ellen Anderson, Public Utilities Commission. There has been a roll call. The requested. The Secretary will take the roll. All those senators having voted who desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 29 ayes and 37 nays, the motion does not prevail.